When we talk about a World War III scenario, I always hear the strategists painting the picture of that, of Taiwan and the global thinkers, which is great. But, if we've already seen precedent for this in Russia by Ukraine, then it seems to me to be like a logical assumption, at least a planning assumption, that the type of strike that we saw in Russia that lended itself to strategic surprise, it really took a major toll on the strategic bombing capability. So what would that do to the United States' ability to respond to Taiwan? What would that do to our ability to respond to Russian aggression? I mean, it would cripple it.
The NATO chief predicts how China could set off World War III. NATO Secretary General Mark, is it Rutte? R-U-T-T-E? Rutte? One of those two. Warned that World War III could begin if Chinese President Xi Jinping invades Taiwan and simultaneously tasks Russian President Vladimir Putin with attacking NATO countries in Europe to distract the West. Rutte described Russia as a junior partner to China and predicted a two-front war. He highlighted the close China-Russia alliance, which has strengthened during Russia's invasion of Ukraine, with China benefiting from the conflict diverting global attention away from Taiwan. Rutte urged NATO nations to increase defense spending to deter Russian aggression in Europe and curb China's military ambitions in the Indo-Pacific. Russian officials mocked Rutte's warning, dismissing the prediction of global conflict. Question here is, if China attacks Taiwan and Russia attacks Europe at the same time, how could you see this changing the world? And what do you think countries like the US and NATO could do to actually stop it?
Yeah, I mean, I've been seeing these predictive models for a while, and it's not that I dismiss them, Andy. I don't. I certainly respect China's ability to overwhelm Taiwan, and I know that they want to. And to some degree, I respect Russia's maybe latent desire to expand beyond Ukraine, although I don't know. That'd be a stretch. However, I don't subscribe to that. I think that model is just, it doesn't make sense to me. It does. I mean, and maybe it doesn't make sense to me in just as a guy who's spent a little bit of time, in combat and kind of seen some other realities out there, like yourself. For example, I mean, I find it hard to believe that they would do that and just like not do anything to us and just leave us to respond. I mean, if history is our teacher, don't leave the U.S. as the QRF, untouched, because, we're pretty good at coming in as a QRF and changing the tide of the battle. What I would be more worried about, and what I could see as something that could be very diabolical, is if you took that same template, but you added another layer, an unconventional warfare layer, where you quietly created a nexus between bad state actors like China and North Korea, asymmetric violent extremist groups like ISIS-K, Al-Qaeda, and then finally international gangs that are really good at moving men, weapons, equipment, and commodities. And if you created a nexus there, and I don't know, something crazy like you had an open border for 4 years where you could infiltrate not just terror groups and sleeper cells, but also, their version of unconventional warfare commandos who are really good at subversion, sabotage for the long game. And then you time it where you have kind of an October 7 inside the United States at multiple cities, along with these external triggers. Now that I could see as a real problem, because that would immediately create institutional paralysis within our own borders, and we would have to make really hard choices on how we committed resources and frankly, our ability, I would think, to respond, or even our propensity to respond to something over there, would be far less likely when we have thousands of casualties here in the United States. And it's, theoretically, if you did that, these individuals, if you look at the Beslan school siege, if you look at the Crocus City Music Hall, October 7, they could hold terrain. They could possibly even mobilize campus groups, diasporas in certain cities to, if not actively resist, passively resist. I mean, you could create a real storm here at home. And then these external things happen, and I think you could see a real challenge for the West. But that's kind of the one I worry about. Not just these two external triggers acting and seeing what we do.
Yeah, I agree with you. I hadn't thought about that, but strategically that makes way more sense. If they were to just move on Taiwan, and then whether or not, Russia is a junior partner to China, and they would actually take action on what they were told to do. I mean, they're kind of at a stalemate right now in Ukraine, and they are certainly going through, as is Ukraine, obviously, because they're being restocked by many people, but the war machine on both sides is grinding really hard. I don't know how much Russia could really reach out more. I'm not an expert on their capability, but I know it has been degraded. If you left the U.S. on the outside of that, like you mentioned, we're really good at smashing shit. We're terrible at putting things back together. But yeah, we'll answer the red bat phone, for the QRF.
Yeah.
It probably will take us decades to put together the Humpty Dumpty again, and we'll try and we'll fail, but we'll do our best. Strategically, though, yeah, if you were to have an infrastructure attack in the U.S. specifically, if they were to target sensitive areas or those events that you talked about, I am so incredibly thankful that we have not encountered a group of people that are willing to hold terrain like that and are actually willing and going into it largely thinking it as a suicide operation, not necessarily a vest, but they're going to wait for the highest level of response and they're just going to gun it out in a theater or a school. I mean, that is a complicated tactical problem that I'm really happy that the U.S., or thankful, I should say, not happy, thankful that the U.S. hasn't had to deal with. That would be really hard. That would be, if they were able to time that with some level of global event, I'm curious how the U.S. would respond to that. It's, you mentioned the border being open for 4 years. In my opinion, I live 60 miles from the Canadian border in Montana.
Yeah.
The northern border is still wide open, man. We have put so much emphasis on the southern border. And I've done quite a few episodes now and talking with people who are experts in cartels. Cartels are not stupid. It's this classic, let's just think of them as thugs. They are just street muscle. And of course, a portion of the cartels, you're going to have that. You're going to have your muscle that's doing that. But these people are complicated thinkers. They're rolled into legitimate businesses, and they've already built infrastructure north of the American border as well. And I mean, in a lot of areas in the state that I live, there's not even a fence either. It's like a mowed stretch of grass. And yes, there's probably sensors and all of these things, but that's very reactive. Like, cool, if you go check a SIM card a week later, you might know somebody who's come through. But there's really non-complicated technical ways that you could get large portions of people, or just smaller portions, but very important and influential people, technology. It's still wide open. And I wonder what it would take for the northern border to get the level of attention that the southern border does.
Well, probably, unfortunately, an incident, right, that would cause us to respond. I mean, that seems to be our MO. But let me just ask you, I mean, you saw the Ukrainian attack on Russian strategic bombing using the trucks bearing the drones, right?
Yeah.
So in your mind, what do you think it would take to build a truck like that with that capability? What are we looking at here?
Well, the truck itself just seemed like it had a dead man compartment that opened. And what was interesting, the truck drivers did not know that they were a part of that plan. I thought that was a great cutout that the Ukrainian did. They were just on their normal, driving route. The drones are basically COTS items, right? Commercial off-the-shelf items. A DJI is probably what most people would recognize. I don't think it would take much. I think the technology and ability and means to do that, the sourcing and means to do that, is readily available to somebody with a credit card and even limited connections.
Okay. And then in your assessment, just like where you live, is the capability there in terms of international crossing, whatever, access placement, to get something like that either across the border from the north, or at least, men, weapons, and equipment into the country where it could be assembled in the country?
Everybody, let's be real with each other for a second. Most doctors do not care about optimization. They do care about you, but they're checking your basic labs. They tell you that everything is looking normal, and they're going to send you on your way. Meanwhile, you're feeling tired, your performance is slipping, and you know that something is off, and that is where Marek Health comes in. Marek Health isn't your typical doctor's office. They're a next-level health optimization platform that actually listens to you, runs advanced lab testing, and helps you optimize your hormones, your metabolism, and your overall performance. So whether you're looking to boost your energy, maybe gain some muscle mass, or you just feel like you're not your best self anymore and you want to change that, Marek gives you those tools and can help you make it happen. You have two options. You can go with their guided optimization program and get a dedicated health coach and medical provider to help you with supplements and prescription treatments. Or if you're more of a do-it-yourself type of person, you can order self-service lab tests and take control of your health on your own terms. The best part is, either option that you pick, you can get 10% off of your order right now. Just go to marekhealth.com and use the code Focal Point at checkout. That's MAREK health.com with the code Focal Point for 10% off. I mean, I don't want to give anybody any ideas, but a smart person looking at this, what they would do is they would move all that into the U.S., and I would use the northern border versus the southern border, and then find a place to put it together when you're inside of the U.S. So I wouldn't move it across the border completely put together. I would find, one of the things the cartels are notorious as doing is they establish relationships on Indian reservations. And whether that's through passing drug trafficking, whatever it may be. But then we have an additional issue of sovereign nation, federal government oversight. A lot of these things border Canada and the United States as well. But I think it's 100% possible that you could bring these things across, and probably the person with the knowledge and ability to do it extremely easily, put it together in the United States. It wouldn't be a problem.
Yeah. And I guess that's my point here, is that when we talk about, a World War III scenario, I always hear the strategists painting the picture of that, of Taiwan and the global thinkers, which is great. But, if we've already seen precedent for this in Russia by Ukraine, and if there is even the remote possibility that the nexus I described could already be in place or could happen as a part of this, then it seems to me to be like a logical assumption, at least a planning assumption, that the type of strike that we saw in Ukraine, for example, in Russia, that lended itself to strategic surprise. It really took a major toll on the strategic bombing capability. So what would that do to the United States' ability to respond to Taiwan? What would that do to our ability to respond to Russian aggression? I mean, it would cripple it. And so this is the part I don't hear anybody talking about. And then I think, okay, well, maybe it's because we don't want to give them ideas. But then I think, well, shit, if we're talking about this, I mean, come on.
They have to be. They've
got it. They've got it. And the reality is who's going to be dealing with this? You're talking about communities. You're talking about local law enforcement. You're talking about county municipalities, state level stuff. There's going to be a federal paralysis if this happens. I mean, if they combine that with, say, 4 elementary schools and 2 nursing homes, right? You rig explosives in the middle. You've got like a Mumbai style attack with 10 well-trained attackers who've gone through selection. They cut their teeth in Afghanistan and Syria. They're fully prepared to die at a time and place of their choosing. Most law enforcement today are trained against one single shooter.
Yeah.
So you put all that in play, and I mean, you've pretty much locked the nation down. And I mean, Western North Carolina locked a lot of it down with just Hurricane Helene. So those are the things that I'm just kind of scratching my head asking, wow, when are we going to really step back and, when, Homeland Security really lead kind of a multi-echelon private public discussion tabletop on this, because it's here and traditional mechanisms and processes to deal with it are not going to get it done. It's just not, we're already way behind.
Yeah. And this is the kind of stuff that will keep you up at night staring at a ceiling fan. Especially with our background where you understand, I mean, we did the by, with, and through piece. We saw the evolution of warfare in both Iraq and Afghanistan. I mean, I remember clearly in Iraq in my first deployment, I watched somebody shoot an AK at a Predator. And that person wasn't around for very long. That's just your local idiot or a very inexperienced person. Then it got real complicated. Then they got real savvy with electronics. Then they got savvy with how they were communicating. Then we watched the influence of explosive penetrating devices travel through these nations. And we started seeing tactics shifting back and forth. These organizations became disaggregate, but they had the same goal. They were planning on their own. They got very, very sophisticated. I think, underestimating your enemy is the classic way to end up having them just serve you your lunch.
And I think we're underestimating the potential of this nexus, because we kind of, you hear the intel community constantly sloughing it off as there's no nexus, but I don't know, man. I mean, I think there already is to some degree. I think you've seen Iran cooperating much more closely with Sunni groups than they've ever done at any point in their history. And think about this. Take the international cartels to the south. I mean, what's been their main reason for not unleashing scunion on the United States. I mean, it's where they do a lot of their business, right?
Yeah.
And it's in their best interest as businessmen from just a practicality piece to not, create actions that would bring retribution on them. But if you make them, a target the same way for JSOC, the same way that ISIS is a target, and dudes start blowing up and dying surgically, in Juarez and other places, what is their reason to not unleash scunion on Fort Bragg and Damn it and other places, on families and things like that? I don't know. That's just where I go. And it's to the point, honestly, man, I had to get away from it. Last time you and I talked, I think we talked about like the Gathering Storm, and I wrote a book on it with Sarah Adams and a few others. That was my opus. I was like, I'm out. And I went back and started working on my play again. I'm working on like theater and stuff. Cause I just, it is really, really tough to think about. And I'm just not sure we're taking it that seriously, honestly.
Well, it's a fine line because nobody wants to be considered a tinfoil hat person. And there are certainly people out there who'd have not only the hat, but the scarf and the suit and the socks that are just fashioned out of tinfoil. But I also don't want to be somebody who buries their head in the sand. And I don't want to be an alarmist. And I also can't turn off, and I'm sure nor can you. I mean, the things you see with your own eyes and you experience in life, and you encounter people that are willing, like you said, to die at a point in time of their choosing. That's a different person to bump up against than like most people will never encounter violence in their life. And that's a beautiful thing. They can walk away from most violent encounters. That's spectacular. If you meet somebody who is radicalized on an ideology and they are prepared to die, like you said, for a cause at a time of their choosing, or whenever they get put into a corner, that's a different level. And once you've seen that, you can't tell yourself that it doesn't exist because you know that it does exist.
That's exactly right.
And I don't want to be an alarmist because crying wolf too much does in fact make people numb to what it is you're crying wolf about. But I don't want to bury my head in the sand. I don't know the answer to it. I can't turn my brain up, but I'm the same way. I don't want to sit there and create a sense of anxiety in myself or those around me that gets to this fevered pitch that they end up having to turn it down so much that they might not see something they should pay attention to. I don't know the answer to it because the threat is there.
Yeah, it's a great way to frame it. And it was happening to me. I found myself, and I think it was because it was on the heels of the collapse and trying to help some buddies get out. And then hearing from some of those individuals that I trust implicitly who are still in Afghanistan, who still have really good access and placement, and the things they were saying, I was like, wow, even if one fraction of this is true,
yeah,
this is not what I'm hearing from the IC. It's not what I'm hearing. And so what I've kind of decided is, at least for me, I wrote the book, put it out there, and it at least feels to me like at least I've put my perspective out there. If people want to take it to the next level and have conversations at a community level, if they want to think about things individually, great. I feel like I don't have much more to offer to it, honestly, other than giving my opinion, because I'm not in the game anymore. I don't even have a clearance anymore. I don't want a clearance. I want to do storytelling and human connection and, watch my kids grow. I left that world, but I'm not sure that world left me. And that's kind of a challenge sometimes, but I found that for me, there's other ways to move through that. Again, storytelling, restoration, healing, working with others. That's kind of my jam. But if you ask me what I think, I'm going to tell you. And it's not what a lot of what I'm seeing that we're actually thinking about as a nation.
Yeah, you can get lost in that. And then it actually getting lost in that maze, you can't actually see what's going on. It's a tough balance. It's an empowering thing to be away from the military and to be able to realize that you've passed on that burden to other people. And I mean, let's just be honest, they're doing a way better job than either you or I were ever capable of. The military and SOF is doing stuff I couldn't even have fathomed. And that's a great thing. But like you said, I left that world, but I don't know if it can ever leave me completely, but it's a tough one for me to manage. And I am cautious with what I say because I don't want to scare people. And I don't want people to be like, oh, that's Andy, the tinfoil hat guy. Because when I do raise something up, I want people to realize that I'm doing it because I truly believe that, not because I'm falling for the next, breadcrumb that's leading me towards the Illuminati.
I agree. And I think the other thing I left our conversation before thinking is you've done a really good job of stepping away from that world and really letting it float down the river, as best you can and acknowledging the capability of the men and women that have it now. And I feel the same way. I think, with our play, as we travel around the country doing the play, and it's all veterans in the cast, I get the opportunity to spend a lot of time with GWAT, Global War on Terror veterans, but also with, active duty special ops guys that come to the play and girls. And they're so impressive, man. I'm just so in awe of them and so grateful for them,
I hate them because they're so much better than me.
They're so good. They're so good. And they're so
I know.
smart.
I hate them for their capability and their intelligence. And I just wish it was me. And so I just push it down deep, just don't deal with those emotions. Just stuff them.
Because that's optimal health.
Yeah, it is. It's never going to come back to bite you.